You are not negative because you are weak. You are negative because you are trying to fight something that cannot be controlled. And every time you try, your mind loses a little more. You have already tried. Thinking more positively, encouraging yourself, telling yourself that everything will be fine. But the more you try to push negative thoughts down, the stronger they return. Not because you are using the wrong technique, but because you are standing in the wrong position. There is a very ruthless truth that Stoicism looks at directly, without avoidance, without comfort. Negative thoughts are not the enemy. They are the consequence of placing your mind on things you have no authority over. You want other people to understand you. You want the past to be different. You want the future to feel certain. And because those things are not in your hands, your mind reacts with anxiety, resentment, and fear. Stoics do not ask how to feel better. They ask a much colder question: is this within my control? If not, they let go. The first rule, and also the most ruthless one: you are only responsible for what lies within your control. Everything else, no matter how important it feels, is not your business. Not in the sense of giving up, but in the sense of cutting off. You do not cut off the world. You cut off the illusion that you have the right to control it. The moment you clearly separate these two zones, something very strange happens. Negative thoughts lose the ground they stand on, because most of them are born from trying to control what never belonged to you. There is a man named Marcus. Whenever work went wrong, he did not only handle the problem, he blamed himself, analyzed, imagined endless worst-case scenarios, not because he was irresponsible, but because he believed every outcome reflected his worth as a human being. A Stoic would look straight at that and say something very cold. Results do not define you. The only thing that defines you is how you behave within what is yours to handle. You do your part well, you accept the rest. No negotiation. This is the first cut into negative thinking. No comfort, no argument, just resetting the boundary. Negative thoughts live on blur. When the boundary is clear, they starve. In the next part, we will move into the second rule. A rule that, if you truly understand it, will make you stop believing most of the thoughts that cause you pain every single day, even though they sound extremely reasonable. The second Stoic rule is even more uncomfortable because it attacks something people protect very fiercely: your interpretations. Most of your suffering does not come from events. It comes from the meaning you attach to events. Something happens, then a thought appears. This is bad. This is unfair. This should not be happening to me. And in that exact moment, pain multiplies. Stoics make a very sharp distinction. There is what happens, and there is what you say about what happens. The first part is reality. The second part is optional. But most people live as if the second part is mandatory. Someone criticizes you. That is an event. You think, they disrespect me, I am not good enough, this proves something is wrong with me. That is interpretation. And it is the interpretation that creates the wound. A Stoic would say something that sounds almost cruel. No one can harm you without your permission. Not because people are kind, but because meaning is assigned internally. There is a woman named Helena. Whenever someone ignored her message, she immediately felt rejected. Her chest tightened, her mood dropped, her entire day changed. But nothing actually happened except silence. The suffering came from the sentence she told herself: I am not important. Stoicism trains you to pause right there. Not to comfort yourself, not to replace the thought with a positive one, but to strip it down. What is the raw fact? A message was not answered. Everything else is added. The second rule is ruthless clarity. You must learn to separate facts from opinions, and you must stop treating opinions as if they were reality. This is difficult because the mind loves stories. Stories give emotional certainty, but certainty does not equal truth. The moment you say, "This is my judgment, not a fact," the thought loses its authority. It can still exist, but it cannot command you. This is how Stoics weaken negative thinking. They do not argue with thoughts, they downgrade them. From truth to interpretation. From command to commentary. In the next part, we will move into the third rule. A rule that directly attacks the fear of future pain. The endless what-if thinking that quietly drains your life long before anything bad ever happens. The third Stoic rule goes straight to the root of constant anxiety, the fear of future pain. Most negative thinking is not about what is happening now. It is about what might happen. What if I fail? What if I lose this? What if things get worse? Your mind projects a future, then reacts to it as if it were already real. Stoics see this as a fundamental error. You are suffering today for an event that does not exist. They ask a very direct question. Is this happening right now? If the answer is no, then the pain is imaginary, not because it feels fake, but because it has no current reality. This does not mean pretending the future does not matter. It means refusing to live emotionally in a time that has not arrived. There is a man named Victor. Every night before sleeping, his mind runs through scenarios, losing his job, failing his family, becoming someone he despises. None of these things are happening, but his body reacts as if they are. His heart races, his chest tightens, he cannot rest. Stoicism would look at this and say something very cold. You are borrowing suffering from the future, and that debt compounds. The future has not asked you to suffer yet. You volunteered. The third rule is brutal discipline of attention. You return the mind to the present moment, not for peace, but for accuracy. What is required of you right now? What is in your hands right now? What action can be taken right now? Nothing else deserves emotional investment. Future events will demand strength when they arrive. Suffering in advance does not prepare you. It only weakens you. Stoics believe that you will either face the difficulty later or you will not. And if you do, you will face it with the resources you have then, not the fear you imagine now. This rule does not eliminate fear. It limits its jurisdiction. Fear is allowed to speak only when there is a real threat in front of you. Everything else is noise. In the next part, we will move into the fourth rule. A rule that feels harsh at first, but once accepted, removes a massive amount of resentment and bitterness from your thinking. The fourth Stoic rule is one that many people resist because it removes a very familiar habit: blaming. When something goes wrong, the mind immediately looks for someone to hold responsible. Other people, circumstances, the past, fate, even yourself. Blame feels active. It feels like control, but in reality, it is one of the strongest sources of negative thinking. Stoics take a harsh position on this. Complaining does not improve reality. It only poisons the one who complains. They do not deny that injustice exists. They do not deny that people behave badly. But they refuse to let resentment live rent-free in their mind. There is a sentence from Epictetus that captures this perfectly. It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things. Blame is a judgment. Resentment is a judgment. Victimhood is a judgment. And every judgment you repeat becomes a mental prison. There is a man named Leo. He constantly replayed moments where others treated him unfairly. Conversations from years ago, missed opportunities, disrespect he never confronted. Each memory reignited anger, as if it had just happened. The event was over, but the suffering continued. Stoicism calls this self-inflicted harm. The fourth rule is brutal responsibility. You take full responsibility for your inner state, even when you're not responsible for what happened. This does not mean approving of harm. It means refusing to let it control you. You cannot change the past. You cannot control other people. But you can control whether you carry their actions inside your mind for years. The Stoic choice is simple and harsh. If something is outside your control, drop the emotional attachment to it. Not because it does not matter, but because holding on to it destroys your clarity. Anger does not punish the offender. Resentment does not fix injustice. Blame does not restore dignity. It only keeps negative thinking alive. When you remove blame, something unexpected happens. Energy returns. The energy that was wasted on replaying and resisting is now available for action. Stoicism is not soft. It does not comfort you. It frees you by cutting away what is useless. In the next part, we will move into the fifth rule, a rule that feels almost cruel, but once accepted, gives you an unshakable calm even in situations where others completely lose themselves. The fifth Stoic rule is the most severe and also the most liberating. Accept reality exactly as it is. Not as you wish it to be, not as it should have been, but as it is right now. Most negative thinking comes from resistance, a silent refusal to accept what has already happened. The mind keeps arguing with reality, hoping that if it complains long enough, things will change. They will not. Stoicism does not waste energy on that fight. There is a sentence that defines this rule clearly. Do not demand that events happen as you wish. Wish that events happen as they do. This sounds passive. It is not. Acceptance is not surrender. It is clarity. When you accept reality, you stop draining energy on denial, and that energy becomes available for the only thing that matters, how you respond next. There is a woman named Clara. She lost an opportunity she had worked toward for years. She replayed it endlessly. If only I had done this. If only they had chosen differently. Her mind lived in an alternate timeline that did not exist. Stoicism would say something harsh. What happened has already happened. Reality does not care about your regret. The only question that matters is what you will do now. As long as you refuse to accept reality, you cannot move forward, because you are still mentally fighting the past. Negative thoughts thrive in that fight. The fifth rule cuts that fight completely. This happened, I do not like it, but I accept it. Those three sentences remove enormous mental weight. Acceptance does not mean you approve. It means you stop arguing with what cannot be changed. When reality is accepted, negative thinking loses one of its biggest fuel sources. Hope that the past can be rewritten. It cannot. The final two Stoic rules are even colder, but also more powerful. They address attachment and ego, the deepest roots of mental suffering. In the next part, we will move into the sixth rule, a rule that teaches you how to stop depending emotionally on things that are guaranteed to change or disappear, and why that dependence is one of the biggest causes of negative thinking in human life. The sixth Stoic rule attacks one of the deepest sources of negative thinking: attachment. You suffer not because things change. You suffer because you expect them not to. People change, positions change, health changes, status disappears, even the body ages. And yet the mind secretly demands permanence. Stoicism does not argue with this reality. It prepares you for it. There is a brutal clarity in this rule. Everything external to you is temporary. If your emotional stability depends on temporary things, then your suffering is guaranteed. There is a man named Adrian. His confidence depended entirely on his career success. When things went well, he felt strong. When they slowed down, he collapsed internally. Not because the situation was catastrophic, but because his sense of self was attached to an outcome he could not fully control. Stoicism calls this fragile happiness. The sixth rule is detachment, not from life, but from dependence. You enjoy things fully. You work hard, you care deeply, but you do not build your identity on things that can be taken away. This is not pessimism. It is realism. Stoics practice something very uncomfortable. They regularly remind themselves that what they love can be lost. Not to become cold, but to become prepared. When loss eventually arrives, and it always does in some form, it does not shatter them, because they were never pretending permanence existed. Negative thinking explodes when attachment is strong and loss arrives unexpectedly. Detachment weakens that explosion. You do not say, "This should not have happened." You say, "This was always possible." And that single sentence changes your relationship with pain. The final Stoic rule brings everything together. It is the rule that removes ego from the center of your thinking and replaces it with something far more stable. In the next part, we will move into the seventh rule, a rule that, if truly understood, ends most negative thinking at its root by changing how seriously you take yourself. The seventh Stoic rule is the one that ends most negative thinking at its root. Stop taking yourself so seriously. This does not mean disrespecting yourself. It means removing the ego from the center of everything. Most negative thoughts are fueled by one quiet assumption that everything that happens is deeply personal, that every failure says something about who you are, that every mistake defines you. Stoicism cuts this illusion sharply. You are not the center of the universe. Events are not designed to test you. People are not constantly judging you. Most things happen because life happens. When you take yourself less seriously, your mind becomes lighter. Not careless, but less fragile. There is a man named Julian. Every small mistake felt humiliating to him. A wrong word, a delayed response, a failed attempt. His mind replayed it endlessly, amplifying it far beyond reality. Stoicism would respond with something blunt. You are not that important. Not as an insult, as relief. The world is not watching you the way you think it is. Most people are busy with their own fears, their own failures, their own worries. Negative thinking thrives on inflated self-focus. When you shrink the ego, thoughts lose their drama. You stop asking, "What does this say about me?" You start asking, "What is the reasonable next action?" This rule creates emotional resilience not by building confidence, but by reducing sensitivity. You still care, you still try, but you do not collapse over every imperfection. Stoicism teaches that dignity does not come from being flawless. It comes from responding well to what happens. You will fail. You will look foolish at times. You will be misunderstood. None of this is a tragedy. The tragedy is believing that these moments define you. When you stop narrating your life as a constant evaluation of your worth, negative thinking loses its final stronghold. These 7 Stoic rules are not gentle. They are not comforting, but they are effective. They do not promise happiness. They promise clarity. And clarity is what destroys negative thinking. Because once you see clearly what is yours to control, what is interpretation, what is imagined, what is attachment, and what is ego, there is very little left for negativity to feed on. What remains is simple. Do what is in your control. Accept what is not. Act with reason, and let go of the rest. That is Stoicism, and that is how negative thinking is starved, not fought.